and its part in the conversation and how it's changed the conversation, or do they see it as a hindrance and they wish they would go away?
So I got to push back on all the black and white on that, right? Because it's not one way or the other. We've got two law enforcement representatives up here. They sound different than law enforcement representatives that spoke at the RNC and that have been responsive to certain crises. So law enforcement's not any one thing. What I will say, though, is that part of this issue is the training, but trainings fail when they come counter to a culture, right? Culture eats training for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and picks its teeth with principles, okay? So culture is the thing that we should be dealing with, and culture is built up not just by leadership, though that matters, but also by policy. So I'm the president of the Center for Policing Equity. Right? We're a nonprofit research and action think tank, and we do this kind of research. We are justice nerds. That means we're nerds in our day job, but we're also nerds in our spare time, okay? And so I'm the guy on the ground who's doing parts of these trainings. Part of what CPE does is, so I'm the head consultant of the bias training at NYPD in response to the Floyd litigation, okay? And what we see when we bring people in is they say, okay, what is this implicit bias thing? This is just another way for you to call me racist, right? And we see that across officers. That is a blue response. And when we say, okay, so implicit bias is one of the things you're going to learn about, but you're also going to learn about history, and you're also going to learn about procedural justice, and you're also going to learn about the ways in which your brain is like everybody else's brain, but your brain is responsive to the policy. The next thing I hear, not just in NYPD, but all over the place, the next thing I hear is, so who's going to have my back when I take this back to my shift lieutenant and to my sergeant, who say, you take that kumbaya stuff and you leave it at the door, right? Because even when we're able to do effective training on not just implicit bias, but the whole range of identity traps that lead to biased behavior, they then got to go back to a department where folks were promoted under the old philosophy. Right? Where folks have jobs under the old philosophy. And one thing I want to make sure folks have from a structural perspective is this. The average tenure of a chief in a major city is 3 years. So if you're a lieutenant that believes that busting heads is the best way to keep communities safe, and you genuinely believe that in your heart of hearts, and you have somebody else who comes in and says, hey, by the way, the justice nerds are going to come from Harvard, are you going to be responsive to that in chain of command, or are you going to drag your feet till those 3 years are up? Right? And then you can get back to the real business of policing. So because these issues are complicated, I have to put a plug in for this on behalf of the rest of the nerds that I carry with me. And I think it's consistent with, frankly, some of the things that I retweet from Netta's account and that I put out there from the rest of the folks that are up here. Beware the racial agony tourists. Beware the people who showed up yesterday on a sightseeing visit and now want to claim expertise through lack of experience. Because policing isn't one thing. Police departments are sites of pain, right? They are frequently unjust on the inside in ways the community feels, and an unjust police department polices unjustly. But people who want to come, you know, Representative Scott had to say, Congressman Scott had to say, it's not about platitudes. But really, let me say it in a more sharp way. Beware the racial agony tourists, because people are benefiting off of the fact that this has been an issue for a long time, but the voices that have cared for a long time have never been elevated. So when you ask me how do police respond, they respond the way the rest of America responds, right? And what's going on between police and communities is what's going on inside of police departments. So if I'm gonna end this comment with Robert Peel, 7th principle of the 9, the police are the public and the public are the police, right? In the same way that police unions have been strong, they have been frequently weak for those who don't hold a voting majority. And that means black officers, and that means women officers, and that means queer officers. So all of that diversity that we see within our own community, you'll see that inside a police department, even though the blue wall shows up when the cameras turn on. When the cameras go away, right, we're seeing the exact same thing inside. The level of brutalization, the level of lack of voice, all of that we see, all that diversity we see inside.
Sir Robert Peel,